Y'all ready?
Let's do it.
Hey, what's happening? You are live with the Toe Bugs. I'm joined here with Nathan Lundy and Nate from Cecil Boot Company. What's going on, Phyllis?
All right. How y'all doing?
Hey, Nick, how's it going? We're
Doing
gonna
well.
start this off the classic way. What boots everybody wear today?
Yeah, we can do that. What are you wearing, Nathan?
Well, I got mine
go ahead,
here.
Nate.
This is the JB Hill. Got the matching collar gator with the pull tabs and the American Gator foot belly.
Yeah.
I was rocking those today.
Sweet. What about you, Nathan?
Well, right now I have on my flip-flops because I just come in from outside. It's been like raining cats and dogs. So I had on my waterproof Durangos today, so it's kind of a letdown right now. I guess I should have staged a pair to the side.
All right. Well, I was wearing the trusty Crocs with the spurs. No, I'm just kidding. I was wearing these JW Boot Company full quill ostrich, kind of a Stockman style boot. And they call this color honey, but it's kind of, a lot of other companies will call it a cognac or what have you. But this is one of my favorite pairs.
I really like those nice big quills on there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of them that are damn near a quarter inch. Like, I don't know if you can see that.
Mm-hmm.
Those two right there. I mean, they're huge. It was a really good hide he picked.
That's a good looking boot.
Yeah. And for all you who don't know, he is the owner of JW Boot Company is Blake Baker, and he's going through a relaunch right now. So he's updating all the pictures on his website, and the stitch pattern on the shafts is going to be a little bit different. And he's reinforced the heel counter on his boots, and it's unbelievable the stuff he's throwing in with the purchase of a boot. You get like this, looks like one of those metal briefcases you see in the spy movies that they handcuff to their arm, and it's full of $1 million. It's this metal case that's foam on the inside instead of a boot box. And he's giving away a pair of insoles, some of his socks, a leather coaster, some conditioning cream, and a pair of boot shapers comes with each purchase as well. So
that would have matched my hat today. I got the Larry Mahan champion with the ostrich on the bill there.
Yep.
That's cool.
All right. So we got together yesterday and we're throwing around topics to talk about, and we decided on cowboy boot sizing issues because for two reasons. One, that question's brought up all the time, all over social media, and I've struggled with it, and that leads into the second reason is every one of the toe bugs, whether they're here right now or not, is an expert on sizing issues because we've all been through it, and it can be an easy experience or it can be a freaking nightmare, from time to time. So we decided to go with that. And I don't know, how do you guys want to start it off? Nathan had a good point earlier about vintage boots versus modern day boots and the difference in sizing. Why don't you start with that, Nathan? Yeah,
and that's something that Nate can kind of elaborate on since he has his business.
Yeah.
It's been my experience that modern boots that we get today have certain sizes and even such, with different makers, they vary, like a Rios to an Anderson Bean, there's a half a size difference there. And I don't know if it's allotted for a soft cushion insole, what the case may be, but it seems like in my experience, like with Casey and Blackjack, they all run, fairly similar. And I'm talking about the classics and the regular Blackjack line. I know that Bootmaker and the 1883s and all that kind of stuff, they may vary a little bit. And of course, Nate, he's got a lot more experience with that kind of stuff. But, and then where we get into vintage boots, where that seemed like, in the late 80s is whenever I first started, getting into cowboy boots and stuff. And I bought my first pair right around 1990. And the philosophy back then was that the boot needed to fit really tight and be real snug and all that. And, therefore, there was seemed like the sizes were tighter on vintage boots versus today's boots. So it almost seems like a vintage boot will be, half a size smaller than a modern day boot. And that's the only explanation I can come up with for that. And that was the norm, for the boot to be super, super tight. But I think a lot of people now kind of are more into comfort, and you see the cushion insoles and stuff. And I know there's a lot of controversy with that because, some people say, a looser boot, doesn't give you right support for your arches and, causes foot problems and things like that. So anyways,
that's a good point. I get asked that a lot of how's a boot supposed to fit? And the best answer I can give anybody is however it is that's comfortable for you. Some people still like them super tight, and I kind of like them medium. I know, Nathan, I think you like them, not loose, but you don't want them real snug on your foot either because of some foot pain. But, it's an individual thing, really. You just need to try on a bunch and figure out which one it is that feels the most comfortable for you, in my opinion.
I think Nathan brought up a really good point with the difference between Rios and Anderson Bean, because they're made by the same company, but not to the same quality, right? So Rios is made a little bit tighter. And I think some of that, if you've ever put on a pair of Stallions, right, the high end type of boot, they fit extremely tight. They're built like a tank. They're built extremely well, very solid soles, solid vamp, stitching. Everything is done, by hand. There's not kind of that loose factory feel that you get in some of the other maybe vintage boots from the 80s and 90s, where you have things that were kind of being mass produced, but still made by hand in the US. So that's a really good point. I tend to find Lucchese's, Stallions, Rios and Mercedes, all of those seem to fit a little tight, and it might be because the materials are of higher quality, everything's built more solid, there's more attention to detail.
That's something else that I have noticed, a difference in a really high-end boot and off the shelf, and this could lead to or be misleading about whether a boot is tight or loose, is some of the, I don't want to say cheaper boots, but middle of the road boots, the hides are a lot thinner a lot of times. If it's cowhide, it'll be half as thick as what you'd see on a custom boot or something of that nature. And when it's that thin and soft, it may not feel quite as tight across the top of your foot, even if it's basically built on the same last.
Yeah, you have something like Gator, when you have a leather lining underneath of that, the Gator is going to press, those scales up against that leather lining. That's going to, give you a little bit less room. One of the other things that's happened recently is toe styles have gone wider, right? So recently you see a lot of square toes. You see a whole lot more of the bulldog style boot that's got kind of a roundish square. And so for me, who's a 9EE in almost every boot, if it's a square toe, I can get my foot into Lucchese, into a narrow square toe for a Justin, which would be unheard of in a lot of other styles.
Yeah. And it's not just the wide square toe that's gotten wider. I've noticed a lot of companies' medium round toes are not as, they're less pointed, for lack of a better term, than, the ones my dad wore in the 70s and 80s, the Lucchese's that he wore. And it's not quite a roper toe, but it's kind of in between, the older style medium rounds and a roper toe. A lot of them nowadays are falling in the middle there. Like Tacovas is a good example. Their medium round toe is a little bit wider than what I was always used to.
Yeah, Tacovas is a good one. And, I'm not entirely sure what it is in the chain there, but pair of 9EEs for them. that's one of the only boots I have that I get the pop where you're coming out of the boot and it like, it fits to a T to the point where it pops in and pops out.
Yeah.
They do have some quality materials, maybe something to be desired for the sole, but everything is, I've had good experience.
Yeah. I think they're a nice boot for the price for sure.
Yep.
And that, I would throw Ruho boots in there. It's very similar. Personally, I think they're slightly higher quality than Tecovas when I reviewed them. And then you got something like Chisos, those are built like a tank and they're, more expensive, but they fit, in my experience, wider than a lot of other boots on the market right now.
The amount I've heard about Chisos, I need to run out and get some right now because I've been hearing a lot about them. And if they fit wider, that's my kind of boot.
Yeah. The one thing is, and I love it, the insole is like no other insole I've ever tried. It's pretty special. Some people I've heard didn't like it, like Lucas, for instance. He likes them, but he's used to wearing like a hard leather insole. And so he says he feels disconnected from the ground a little bit. And I understand what he's saying, but it doesn't bother me the way it does some other people that I've heard of that tried them. But
I agree with you. When I get into a pair of, some of the Dan Post came out with the handcrafted cushion comfort, back in the day. And that was kind of, at least for me, my first foray into a little bit of the cushion of a boot. I have a pair of Dan Post Bullfrog that are 9D. I don't wear a 9D in anything else, but when I was able to slip into the cushion and, the skin maybe could give a little bit or a little bit less, but that allowed me to kind of sink into the boot a little bit and feel like I was, it didn't hurt as much in my insole, in my, the arch of my foot.
Yeah. What about you, Nathan? Do you wear any boots with an insole in them?
So I do some and some I don't. Now my Lucchese Classics, we're talking about that. They seem like they run just a little bit bigger than my Blackjack, so they allow me to put a nice little cushion insole inside of them. But we talk about the comfort level. I discovered on those, Lucchese has this crepe light, extreme crepe light sole. It's thinner crepe, and man, I just fell in love with that thing. So every pair that I got them to make for me, I had them put those soles on those boots. Right. So man, with that and a cushion insole, those things are like, they're like my running shoes. I mean, their comfort is just out of this world.
Yeah. A lot of people hate on Ariats, and I get it. Personally, I don't have a problem with them. I think they are what they are. And if you know what they're going for, I think they're fine. But, the lady that started Ariat used to work at Reebok, and her goal was to merge athletic shoe technologies with a cowboy boot. And I think they've achieved that pretty well. I mean, they could use some better hides. They could do a lot of different things to make it a more high-end product. But, I think they know what they are. And if you know what they are, which is they're meant to be worn into the ground and thrown away and buy a new pair, Yeah.
And what a lot of people sleep on, I think, for Ariat is that's the gateway drug, right? That's for me, Tractor Supply, a pair of round toe Ariat work boots. That gave me the sickness there in Texas and San Antonio back in the day. And that was exactly where I wanted to be. I put those on, and it gave me the transition between a tennis shoe, working out in the yard, and a cowboy boot. So absolutely. It may not be a daily wear now, but it's something I think that can allow a little, like, it can be a stark contrast when you put on a hard sole leather cowboy boot and you go, oh, what is this? Right. I'm used to wearing tennis shoes with cushion or flip flops or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
I think it's a good product for what it is. I agree.
I agree. And I always have a pair in my collection, and I've thrown away two because I wore them out, but I always have a pair because they're tough as hell. First of all, the leather, that's a downside to some people. It's usually a thick, stiff leather, so it takes some people a while to break them in. But if it's pouring down rain and you need to go to the store or whatever, it's the perfect boot for that. I don't have to worry about what, if I go to the ranch, I can wear them. If I'm working in concrete, I can wear those and I don't have to worry about it. You know what I mean?
Nathan mentioned it earlier. He said it was raining today, and I'm the same way. Like if I got a pair of dress boots, I wear a suit to work generally. And so I got dress boots on almost every day. If it's raining, I really got to go back and look and go, okay, it's either elephant or, cowhide, because I'm not going to put on something. I'm not going to put on a snake. I don't want my scales ruined. I don't want shadows showing up on my ostrich skin. So you've got to have something in your arsenal. I've got two, right? One is a Lucchese Classics semi-square that is a smooth ostrich, and then a narrow square Justin that's a smooth ostrich. And those are my go-to. If it's raining, like if there's something going on, you got to have a pair of backup, that's not the $1,200 pair of gaiters.
Right. Exactly. And Ariat makes some that look pretty decent that you could wear with a pair of khakis or something, and it's not going to look ridiculous, But again, you can wear those when it's raining and there's puddles up to your knees type thing,
And that's how it is in Texas. I mean, especially where I'm at, I'm by the coast, so it doesn't it doesn't just like rain, it floods. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we get a lot of water and stuff. So I got some Durango waterproofs and stuff, but you guys you're talking about some really good stuff about every boot has its place, and we talk about these things and all the way down to we're just talking about sizing, all the way to a made to measure boot, and if a working cowboy, and I think Jeremiah did a video with the maker, and they talked about this stuff, and they really hit the nail on the head. If you're going to be a working cowboy, and that's one of your tools, like, I'm a pipe fitter and a welder, so I have my welded hood, my squares, and all my stuff. So these boots are actually like a tool to a working cowboy. So he'd need a made to measure boot that's probably not going to have an insole, but it would be to fit his foot, and he can work in this boot all day long. And, so every boot has its places.
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
Is one thing, Nathan, this is a really good point that I wanted to touch on, because in America, right, you certainly have a lot of hard labor skills, right, that are still out there, but you've got a lot of guys that are in an office, right? They're in a cubicle. And for me, what that boot does is confidence, right? I have, the best, however goofy it sounds, right? Like the best footwear in the room. I know that I, have something unique, right? Something that separates me from the pack. And I think that's what cowboy boot enthusiasts are all about, right? Like you start getting into those exotics, you start getting into the vintage, you are, unique, and you've done your research, and you know what you've got on. So for me, in the corporate world, whenever I throw them on, it's a tool of my trade in that it sets me apart.
Yeah. And if you're not into exotics, or you just don't own a pair yet, or what have you, if you got a pair of black medium round toe cowboy boots, shine those puppies up, man, and make them look good. And they're going to look great with a suit or khakis or whatever, pair of jeans, a nice brown or black cowboy boot can go with just about anything.
Yeah.
But so one thing I wanted to touch on with sizing, in the US, sizes, with current boots today that, a lot of people would go to Boot Barn and buy. The sizing can differ from brand to brand, but it also can differ from line to line in the same brand. And that's because of the last that's used, everything's going to fit slightly different. And I think that's pretty well known, but, it gets a little more difficult if you're buying a Mexican made boot that is listed in Mexican sizing, or even like a Boulé or a Canada West that's made in Canada. They have a different sizing system as well, and that can get a little confusing. Nate, do you have any input on that?
Yeah, I get this question all the time. because a Mexican size for a woman is different sometimes than the Mexican size for the man. But generally, you'll have something that's like a 29 is like a I can't remember. I'd have to go
like an 11 or 11 and a half, something like that.
Yeah. But so that's something that comes up pretty frequently.
Yeah.
Is and sellers should definitely do this whenever possible. Vintage sizing, as well as Mexican sizing, you need to describe that in the post, because I don't know how many messages I used to get back in the day that would say, well, I'm looking at a number 28, but you say this is, a 10 or a 9.5. What does that mean? And vintage sizing, that's something that people really have kind of forgotten. It's kind of a lost art. There's a digit system. So you have a 265 equals a 6.5B, or a 4100 equals a 10D. So those are sizing questions that you have to answer, with the seller, but also you have to understand, as Nathan said, when you get that 4100, that's a 10D. Probably that's a smaller 10D than what's made today, because like he said, I mean, vintage sizing, with the exception most of the time of Tony Lama tends to be pretty true to size, with the exception of like really, really old boots. But Nakona, Justin, I've had a lot of luck with sizing one size up.
You just said something interesting. The term, they're true to size. I have an understanding of it now that I've tried so many boots, but true to what size, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, there it seems to be that, within the late 90s and like, I'd say early to mid 90s. And I think, Nathan, you were alluding to this earlier, which was, you used to want a snug boot. You used to want something that was going to be tight, that was going to fit, probably a little bit different than what you would use in today's footwear. And so when you got into this kind of era where people are mass producing everything, sneakers are mass produced in China and all this, everything has to be the same size. If it's not, then things are going to be returned, and the economical quality is going to go down.
Yeah. So
true to size is probably right around the late 80s, 90s era. So anything that's vintage, really, you should be talking to a well-known seller who has a return policy, as well as sizing yourself. Not everybody can buy 10 pairs of 1960s Nakona, right? So understand that those boots were made for a smaller size.
And you were talking about the Mexican boots. Keep in mind those are all built on a different last as well, so it can vary, a half size here or there from time to time. And then there's the Canadian boots, which the normal size they list for men, normal width is E instead of D, is what we say here. And I've been told that roughly an E is a D, but I don't know if the numerical size matches up with what we have here. Do you know about that, either one of you? Like, if it was an 11E in Canada, is that an 11D here?
I mean, because most of the stuff that I've dealt with has been, kind of in vintage. So I see Brahma's a big one that I see with some of the vintage exotic skins. Most of those seem to be pretty true to size. I've seen a lot from this, was it Montreal Boot Company? I haven't had an opportunity to try any of the boots, but the reviews I've seen on Instagram seem to indicate that there's a similar correlation in size.
Okay. That's good to know, because I've been, Boulay and Canada West are both on my list of ones that I want to try. But, obviously, well, I don't know if it's obvious, but around here, I haven't seen any in a store. So I'd be ordering online.
So what is the experience overall for everybody with made to measure? I mean, how how much or little experience have folks had with that?
I'm having my first pair built right now.
Nice.
What about you, Nathan?
I was going to say something about, we're talking about, true to size, and Nate talked about this terminology, changing through time and stuff. And my perception of true to size is if an individual, go to, if you go to like the Red Wing store or maybe a higher end shoe store or whatever, they'll pop out that Brannick device.
The brand.
And measure you on the Brannick device. And I think this true to size stuff relates to the Brannick device sizing, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
Yeah. And I'll take it a step further myself. Whenever I go to a Cabineters or a Boot Barn or boot store in general, and this is a tip for everybody out there, I will try on, 30 pairs of boots while I'm there, so that I know if I'm going to order online and it's a square toe Tony Lama I'm looking at, I know what size to at least start with, what size should fit. And I'll keep a note of that on my phone. I'll say, okay, square toe Tony Lama, I wore an 11D. And so to me, true to size is the size that I wear most commonly between all brands, So for me, it's an 11D is the one that I get most often. But I've got a pair, here that are 11 and a half, and I've got a 10 and a half also. So sometimes, it varies just a little bit.
So Nathan, have you had made to measures done before?
Yeah, I've had, I started getting some made to measures probably back, in the early 2000s. And the first pair I had was over there at Jesse's in South Houston. And, he measured my feet and all that good stuff and made them for me. And at that time he asked me, how do you like the fit? And I told him this and that. And he made that fit for me just enough. And he put this little insole inside of there for, a little cushion insole.
Mm-hmm.
And man, that was a really good experience. And so from that point, I've had quite a few made to measure boots from different makers and stuff. And some I've had, measure me in person, and I've done a few measurements online, and I've tried also some that will send you like stock boots, and then you can try some stock boots in different sizes and then tell them how to adjust it there to get a proper fit. So, I mean, there's a bunch of different ways, and all of them, in my opinion, have been pretty successful. Yeah. But like Nick mentioned, I kind of like my boots a little bit on the loose side because I run recreationally. So, when I go to purchase shoes or whatever, I buy them the size up for running, because as you run and the further you run, your body heats up and your feet swell.
Yeah. While
you're running. So your shoes have to, accommodate that. So that's why I don't really like anything real tight on my feet. I want a good, snug, nice fit, but I don't want anything that's like, causing me any type of discomfort.
Right. I'm the same way.
And Nick, you brought this up pretty recently on your Instagram, that weight loss, weight gain, I mean, it really does affect shoe size. You don't think of it a lot, right? It tends to appear quickly in the upper body, but on the lower body, you can have a significant amount of shoe size change in, maybe a year's period of time, depending on what's going on with your personal routine.
Yeah, that's what happened to me. I went over the course of 1 year, I went from a 12 double E to an 11D. And when I was a 12 double E, I don't think it was so much the length. I think I needed the 12 double E because of the width, and it was probably a little too long, but because my foot was so wide, it felt like it fit well. And I attribute that to when I was heavier, I think it pushed my feet and made them spread out more, because of the weight they were supporting. I'm not a doctor, I don't know, but that's my theory anyway.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah, I did stay at a Holiday Inn last night.
It makes sense.
But yeah, that was a shock for me that I would I knew I was going to be going through pants and stuff, but I was like, damn,
Yeah, lose your whole collection of boots. That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, and tennis shoes and everything else. It was crazy. My Crocs size didn't change though. I'm still a 12 in Crocs.
As long as you keep those spurs, that's what matters.
Oh man.
Is there any questions coming in from the live feed?
No. Oh, Mark Dotson says he can hear your aquarium.
No, I turned it off.
Did you?
He's probably hearing my dogs. My little dogs are in there going crazy.
Okay.
And there's some kind of feedback a little bit.
There's a
from
little
there.
bit of feedback, I think. We've had that issue before. I'm not sure what it is though. So let me just tell you a personal story while we got a little dead air here. I had some people in town last week. That's why there wasn't a Towbug show. And they left on Friday. And so my wife and I have been talking about, we wanted a refrigerator for the garage, but we've been looking around at used refrigerators and we just didn't see anything that we thought was worth the price, right? And for years, we've hated our refrigerator in the kitchen. So we decided we're just going to go to Home Depot and buy a new refrigerator, right? And then we'll move the current one to the garage. So we did that. And I spent a fortune on it. Like, it was kind of sticker shock what refrigerators cost these days. Purchased that, came home from Home Depot. This is all on Saturday. And my wife yells at me. She's in the master bedroom and the TV's shutting off by itself just constantly. And we messed with it for a couple of hours. I was like, so I got on Best Buy and I ordered a TV, not super expensive, but still. And then I come in, before I go to bed, I come in my office to check everything and shut my computer down. And I walk in and it's restarting by itself, and I'm like, oh, that's not good. And then it just died. It wouldn't boot up. It wouldn't do anything. So then I had to get on Amazon that night and order a new laptop that was 10 times more than I wanted to spend. So it was like the most expensive day ever, other than buying a car or buying a house. I was just like, man, Nathan said it. He goes, it comes in threes. Jeez. So I got a new laptop. It's up and running. Everything's good. My desk looks ridiculous because now I have 2 laptops and 2 big ass monitors on there, and I don't even have anywhere to write or anything. It's so stupid. Oh man. So Nathan, you've been getting a lot of rain. We've been getting drenched, man, for about a week and a half.
Yeah, ours just really started pretty much yesterday. I mean, it started last night, but like I said, it doesn't just rain, it floods, man. It'll rain 3 or 4 inches at one drop. And I mean, it's just, but anyways, we're supposed to get it all the way through Saturday, I think. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, my wife and I are actually going to the Fort Worth Stockyards Friday and going to a concert at Billy Bob's Friday night. But, we're staying the whole weekend, wanted to hang out at bars and shop and do all the Fort Worth stuff, and it was looking like it was going to be pouring the whole time. Now they've dropped it back to 40%, so we're keeping our fingers crossed.
Sweet.
Yeah, we're going to see Gary Allen. I don't know if y'all are fans of Gary Allen, but that's who we're going to see.
My wife is a huge country fan.
Yeah,
she's going to be upset that I don't know who Gary Allen is.
So that's a funny story too. I've got a crazy sister, right? And she always gets mad when I don't invite her places, right? And she called me and wanted to go to a movie over the weekend. I said, well, I can't. We're going out of town. We're going to stay in Fort Worth. And I said, and we're going to see Gary Allen. And I would have bet $1 billion freaking dollars that she didn't know who Gary Allen was. And she goes, oh my God, you're going to see Gary Allen? I love him, blah, blah, blah. She goes, I wonder if there's any tickets left. I go, no, they're sold out. And I have no idea. It's just like, we were not spending the weekend with my sister. And my wife's, mad at me. And I'm like, she's a Van Halen fan, I'm like, I just had no idea she would know who he was.
Oh man.
Yeah, we've been having like absolutely no rain up here, which is nice because I can throw on whatever pair I want in the morning and not be afraid about something getting soaked for like 2 weeks in Maryland. Because have you heard about the Brood X cicada?
Do what?
So every 17 years in Maryland and Virginia and over here, you get this particular breed of cicada where
Okay.
hundreds of thousands of millions of them breed only every 17 years. And this year they're coming out. So basically our entire woods is covered in a buzzing, like, you know, when you leave your electric razor out on a table,
Yeah.
that's what the entire state of Maryland sounds like right now.
That
Yeah.
sounds like the
So-
plague, man. The locusts.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a news article though that they're edible. They're like the shrimp of the land.
Ah, screw that. If anybody doesn't know what a cicada is, it looks a lot like a locust.
Yeah. And they're the ones that leave all the skins all over the trees. and
Yeah. Yeah. That's the Lay's potato chip of the land, man.
Golly.
My wife said she wants to go see Gary Allen. So
Ah,
if there's a way you can hook it up, I would be.
she's
extremely
welcome, but she can't bring my sister.
Oh no.
Oh, geez. All right. So, what else can we talk about cowboy boots, guys?
So I was going to mention something. You know, we have just in our little tight knit group, we have a plethora of information. We have some guys with some extremely good knowledge. And what I was wanting to do is see about getting a few of these guys together and composing a chart, right? So we're talking about all these sizes and stuff, and it'd be complex, and it wouldn't be anything that could happen overnight or maybe a day or even 2 days or however long. But you know, like with vintage sizing, and then the scale system that Nate talked about with the number sizing systems, and then with like a modern day sizing, you know, and be able to correlate all these together. Like a 9, you know, would be like he said, a 495 in vintage stuff. You know, you see what I'm saying, and have these work and give you an approximate. You could go through there, a person could get this scale and go through there if they're looking at used boots or whatever the case may be, say eBay, like at Cecil store, whoever, they could go in that chart and say, well, you know, this one right here is probably going to get me close to where I need to be. And you know, it's something that we could share between the groups. You know, it's not any kind of knowledge that we would want, like, just, you know, just hoard up for us. You know, knowledge that we could share to all the members in these various groups. I just kind of thought that might be a good idea, because we have the people, we have the knowledge, we just need to transfer it to a chart.
And I think this
that's
was
a great
something
idea
that Nick was asked during the exotic identification was, is there a way that somebody can format this? And Jeremiah brought it up when we talked about the age of vintage boots.
Mm-hmm.
The tags indicate a certain age. And I think Nathan is 110% correct. You could take, you know, maybe some of the vintage sizing based off of a couple of anecdotal responses and build a chart that also could show, you know, the vintage age. Jeremiah seemed really interested in that. And then you could also have, you know, kind of at the appendix, a skin correlation.
Yeah. And I think maybe piggybacking off that, I think it would be great if there was a chart, you know, to do as many as you can, kind of a decoder ring for all the model numbers from the different brands, and what, you know, each, you know, 2 characters or whatever it is, what those mean, you know, the year, the hide, the color, whatever it may be.
That's a big one. Yeah. Lucchese has been pretty standard throughout the years, except for San Antonio, as far as I've been able to establish. Tony Lama, I've just been learning a lot more about, like the recent Tony Lama brands use a C for cushion comfort before the style number, and they'll have like a Z toe and a Y toe. So, you know, there's certainly a lot of complexities that go into it, but like Nathan said, with the absolute kind of breadth of knowledge that all the people that bring to this, can delve in and add to it. It would be good to have a working, maybe it's a website or some type of guide.
Just a kind of a living document that we can update whenever and have, a bunch of people contribute to it. That would be awesome. So Max Gebhardt in chat wanted to talk about the shaft size between boots, and a lot of times if you get a Roper or a Stockman boot, it's going to be a shorter, wider shaft. And as you increase in height on the shaft, it tends to get a little bit narrower in my experience. And then you have some, like I have a pair over here that it's real tight, which is good for me because I have little bitty skinny calves, but people with bigger calves may have an issue with that boot because it's hard, it's tight through the throat, but then also it's a real narrow shaft. And, that happens from time to time, He also wants to know about if there's some kind of strap that's on the market to, I guess, take a wider shaft and cinch it up so it's not as wide.
That's interesting. The only ones I've ever had issues with are tighter shafts. And generally when you have vintage custom boots, a lot of people are looking at, really awesome shafts. They've got the inlay double eagle. They've got a lot of inlay color. Mm-hmm. That's something that you want to put on the outside of your jean. You want to show that off.
Yeah.
But I mean, for me or anybody who's ever done any kind of bodybuilding or lifting or anything like that, a lot of times the calf on any kind of vintage boot is going to be prohibitive. Like it's going to be something that you're just not going to be able to put on. Yeah. I've had things that I can fit onto my foot, but as a vintage boot, they're just not built to the typical American day-to-day life that exists today, which calls for maybe a little bit more of a larger shaft for other individuals. I'll tell you, the only way I've been successful with vintage boots, if there's a larger scallop cut into the back, like with Laramie's, you can wear those again, like you said, with Ropers. I like Shorty's Ropers. Yeah, those are my vintage collectors because I have a larger calf and I can't fit into something. But those older boots were definitely a lot more restrictive.
And see, I'm the exact opposite. I have tiny ankles and calves, like silly looking when I wear shorts because I'm a fairly big guy, right? And so Roper and Stockman's I don't like as much because a lot of times my jeans fall down inside the top of the boot, and I know there's I know I'm not the only one. There's people out there with skinny calves that have the same problem. But Max, to answer your question, as far as something on the market, I'm not aware of one if there is, but I have seen people that used like a small bungee cord and wrapped around the top of the boot, or Jeremiah Craig just did a video or a post. I can't remember which one, but he took a long shoelace and just wrapped around the boot a couple times, put it through the pull straps and cinched it up. Me, I'm not sure I would do that, but I have seen people do that.
Yeah, when you're talking about something that's bigger, you can always have a maker or a cobbler go smaller, right? You can always remove leather and have things resewn. The more difficult piece is to have everything match when you add leather. So I've seen people go relast feet smaller, relast uppers smaller, but I haven't seen, I guess it wouldn't be called a relast, it would just be shrinking the upper, but I've seen it.
Diego Anthony, going back to the chart Nathan was talking about, wants to know about possibly adding in their boot size as it correlates to tennis shoe or athletic shoe size. I think that would be a little bit harder to do personally, because I know like I cannot wear an Adidas or a Nike because they are so damn narrow. I have to wear something like I wear Asics is what I wear, because they make them in width, first of all, and the length just fits me better. I mean, it's the same thing with boots. I found a brand that fits me good, and that's what I wear. So
I think
Yeah,
so.
first of all, shout out Diego, and I will say generally, usually the sneakers are going to be true size type things. But go ahead, Nathan.
No, you hit the nail on the head. That was it. I mean, I think all those sizings now in modern days are derived coming from that Brannock device.
Yeah.
With tennis shoes and all that stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's not that much different than cowboy boots. They all fit a little bit different.
So I think what we need to do is whenever we get this group of folks together and we sit down and talk about it, try to estimate a date that this true to size and the Brannock scale, the Brannock device, came together. So what date forward could you look at stuff being produced, and then obviously going backwards would be considered vintage. So we just got to figure out where that line is at.
Yeah. Jim Collins has a great question. He mentions Lucchese, but this could apply to any brand. If you wear a particular size, does that size carry over to all the different toe styles? So if you wore a 12 in a medium round toe, is that going to be the same in the wide square toe or the 7 toe or a snip toe? I would say they probably shoot for that, but that is not necessarily the case. I have Rujos, for a up and coming brand. I have Rujos in a wide square toe that is an 11, which is my normal size, and it fits perfect. And I got the 11 in their medium round toe, and not only were my toes cramped, but that's the one that it was really tight going on through the throat. So I had to go up to an 11 and a half, and it fits much better. But that's just one example.
I had the exact same thing happen not a week ago. I had a guy buy a pair of 12B Justin vintage ostrich in a full round, which was almost like what you would see in a square today, like the ball, the more bulbous round. And he sent me a question beforehand. He said, hey, I'm a 12D, but can you measure these and just check for me? And the width measurement ended up working out, and he's very happy with them. Absolutely no issues with having kind of that rounder toe. That toe box really does control a lot of the pull of the vamp, right? If the toe box is incredibly narrow, unless you set it forward into like an X point, that's so much further ahead of where the toe sits, it's going to pull that vamp skin together and constrict your foot.
Yeah. And I think the popularity of the wide square toe has contributed to some of the sizing difference from person to person, because you have so much room in the toe. You may be comfortable in a 10 and a half in a wide square toe, but when you go to a different, say a 7 toe, you might be an 11 or 11 and a half, depending on how tight it is through the throat. And, I guess what I'm saying is in a wide square toe, the length doesn't matter as much as it would on a snip toe, because you've got so much room in there in the toe box.
Nick, this is like a huge epiphany for me. I mean, because this is precisely the reason I think why square toes are so popular, because sneakers and dress shoes have done away with wide sizes. Everything you get is Brannock device set to a D. Everything's set to a D width, and so many guys and women like my wife, she's a wider toe, they're not necessarily just built on the length of the foot. There's a lot more that goes into the width. So somebody who's a comfortable 9EE in some vintage sizes, I'm a 10 and a half single E, just because, everything works out to really just being a 9EE in what you would have in a traditional sizing. So having cowboy boots really gives everybody another dimension to look at your sizing, because you may have trouble in sneakers that you think you're a 9 and a half, then you're a 10 the next day. It might be your width, right? And that's what this gives you. It gives you the room and the ability to kind of fit into what really your true size is.
That's one thing that irritates the shit out of me on social media is forget about the people that bash wide square toes. I'm used to that. I don't care. But it's the ones that get on there and say, you're an idiot if you think they're more comfortable than other toe boxes because your toes aren't supposed to be in the toe box, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, you son of a bitch, you're the one that has never worn a wide square toe. You think they're heinously ugly. I'm telling you, they're a lot more comfortable for a lot of people than other toe styles. And
I got a Lucchese 9D in a square toe, that the smooth ostrich I was referencing earlier.
Yeah.
And I was digging holes in them sons of bitches this past weekend. I mean, they're comfortable enough to use with a shovel.
Yeah.
So I don't prefer them just for the look and the style. I like a dress shoe. I like a medium round toe, a J toe, an R toe. But certainly for the purpose, there's no reason. You're 100% right. There are people out there that just hate on square toe or hate on narrow toes.
Toes,
that's not cowboy.
Toes.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, I don't get it. I'm like,
where
who
would
cares?
you like?
Yeah, it's like it's not your money. He bought it with his own money. Why do you care? But you get a lot of that. Yeah, I don't know. Nathan and I have had a billion conversations about that topic. And I like all the toe. Well, I won't say all, but I like most of the toe styles out there. I don't wear all of them for, some don't look right on my feet. Others, I don't like the shaft height, whatever. But looking at a boot or seeing it on somebody else, I like most of them. But that includes wide square toe as well. I like the way they look. So, all right, what else have we got here? Diego, how often do y'all polish reptiles, particularly snake and sea turtle?
When you say polish, okay, this is going to get into conditioning, and I know we don't want to do that in this episode.
That's okay. We're going to do it in a couple of weeks, but we can touch on it here.
All right. Okay, Nate's a little freaky about that. So polish, right? I don't polish a lot of boots with shoe polish, with heavy wax as far as exotics are concerned. I'm not a fan. As somebody who's had to redo and pull all that crap off of a pair of boots, It's not fun. But I would say conditioning, depending on the age of the boot. I have a pair of Nakona 1969 alligator belly that I wear pretty frequently, that I condition after every other wear. And I have these JB Hills, right, that are newer. They're probably made in the mid 2000s, late 2000s, and maybe every other month. So it's going to depend on the quality of the skin, right? The type of leather. Snake is going to be more often than anything else.
Yeah.
But I'll save that for another time.
So, well, that brings up a question for me. The only snake skins I've ever owned were natural color, but obviously you can buy brown python or what have you. If you don't get the belly cut, which is more smooth, if you get a real scaly cut on a brown python, can you polish that?
So define polish.
Can you put something on there that matches the color of the boot?
Yeah, so what I would suggest is using more of a cream, like Saphir cream, which has a similar color as well as a conditioning element. Okay. What I would not suggest to use is a wax polish. A wax-based shoe polish is going to
go to Walmart and get Kiwi.
Do not, please, God, please don't. I'll cry. Please don't do that to your exotic skins. You don't want to put wax into those like different corners, and because eventually it'll cake up so much you won't be able to see the figure of the skin, which is kind of completely the opposite of what you want to be able to do with a pair of boots. So if you're going to use it, I would say default to either, especially for exotics, a colored cream, which will restore color. You can match it pretty decently and kind of spread it out evenly throughout the boot. It'll nourish the skin, or just a conditioner, right? And so it depends on what's going on. If you're losing a little bit of color, there are some guys out there, I don't know what you guys are doing. If you trip over every single step on your way up the stairs to work, if you're like
kicking rocks,
kicking rocks, you've just completely removed the front of your boot. But you might want to consider a colored cream
Yeah.
that is both nourishing as well as adding color to the boot, as opposed to just a conditioner.
Whether it's that or just a conditioner, I mean, it's absolutely imperative to go with the scales on a snakeskin.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, I can't
Yeah.
imagine if you got cream or polish or something underneath the scales, that'd be horrible.
Right. Yeah. So that's, again, so if you were to go ahead and wax up a pair of Reptile and get that underneath the scales, it'll start tearing them off, because your jeans, right, are going to pull up on that vamp as you're walking around, or pull on the counter. And that's where you get a lot of these, you know, unfortunate eBay finds where you've got half the scales missing, and you know, people want their $300 back, but sorry, bud.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to end it there, guys. Everybody, we will be back next Wednesday, excuse me. And not sure the topic yet, but I will have that posted all over my social media in a few days. We're going to start promoting these things a little earlier, try to get everybody excited and let y'all know what's coming up. So anyways, thanks, Nathan. Thank you, Nate. Thank all y'all for watching and chatting it up with us. I appreciate it. And we'll catch you on the next one. Take it easy.
Hey, Nick, you got twice the upvotes on this Reddit as you did last time.